Good morning. Welcome to First Things First. I'm Ebony K. Williams in for Jenna Wolfe. That is Hall of Famer Cris Carter and Mr. Nick Wright. Good morning, fellas.
Oh, I know what you're doing. Oh, it's the new, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Ebony, but it's the new Slim Fit Cris Carter. Yeah, he is, I believe, 7 pounds away from peak playing weight condition. And so now all of a sudden, start of a show, he's doing a little one of these, let me see if the suit still
I'm like
fits.
Nick's daughter. I'm bashful, but I really talk all the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Like
you look great, Mr. Carter.
0%
Thank you.
body
I love the
fat.
color of that.
I love
Reminds me of a little Syracuse orange. Well done, Ms. Williams.
No, it also looks good on you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm not really with that cuse in the ACC, but we're not going to talk about that this morning. We are going to
Got
start
some new Jordans to sell, by
with
the way.
Tom Brady, Shay, right there. Tom Brady turned 41 years old on Friday, but so far, of course, his age has not stopped him from dominating the NFL. Pro Football Focus has him ranked #1 QB in football. Brady is coming off an MVP season where he threw 32 touchdowns to only 8 interceptions. CC, how in the world is this possible? How is Tom Brady able to be at the top of his game at 41 years old?
I'm going to try to give people maybe a few reasons why, but a lot of it, I mean, I got to tell you, I don't know. Like we're not supposed to be on TV talking about subjects and be like, I don't know. Well, in this one, as far as Tom Brady and what he's doing, it's because
it's unprecedented.
There's
nothing in history you can pull to and say he's doing what this guy did, because he is blazing new ground every game he plays as far as at that level at this age.
Right, but one thing that I'm not going to do is I'm not going to start with Tom Brady and his commitment to the game as far as taking care of his body. I know players that have played with Tom Brady, and they say it's just like having a coach on the field as far as the meetings. Tom Brady is running the meeting, installing parts of the offense, explaining the small little details of technique that typically even the quarterbacks don't get into. How many steps you're going to take, what's your head position, all these things. So his overall love for the game, that's the only way you can play a long time, especially unless you're a kicker, where you're not necessarily kicking or involved in all the team, the mundane things with the team. When you are a quarterback, man, you are the central focus of an organization on and off the field. So his ability to still have fun playing the game. We heard from Andrew Luck yesterday. Andrew Luck said, no, I didn't think I wasn't going to play football again, but I didn't know if I was going to have fun playing football. So when you've accomplished as much as Tom Brady has and still get the joy to get up and to go to work, and on a Wednesday, be excited. Training camp number 19, 20, to be excited. Those things are impossible to do. But that combination and being in an environment where Bill Belichick will not let you rest. In that marriage, what other people might look at as chaotic is harmony and successful. And I believe that Tom's love of football has grown being around Bill and Bill's pursuit of perfection on a daily basis. And I think that they have really helped push and pull each other to where they are.
And when Cris says it's unprecedented, we can't pull anything from it, any examples, it's not just that he's playing at a high level at this late age. He just completed, or maybe is in the midst of, depending on what he does this year, the greatest stretch statistically of his career. The last 3 years are the best stats he's ever had. That's his age 38, 39, and 40 season. Over the last 3 years, he averages a 105 rating, 32 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, while averaging, as if you want to do the quarterback wins thing, over 12 wins per season. So, like, how can that be possible? My best answer is this. Tom Brady's 4.3 40 is his brain. And the one thing that does not deteriorate as an athlete with age, it actually gets sharper for some with age, is your mental acuity. What did he say to you, Cris? Why would I stop taking the test when I have all the answers? So when he's never been a guy who's beaten you with raw athleticism, he's never even been a guy who's beaten you because he has the greatest arm talent. He's been a guy that has learned the game as well as anyone we've seen and has developed on an upward curve as well as anyone we've seen. It almost makes sense that until his body betrays him to where he can't play, that the mental side of the game has gotten easier for him, not harder.
But this is the struggle that most people, when they get beyond 35 years of age, playing the major sports, it's that my brain, yes, is working at the highest level it's worked at, but I can't get my body in position to do what my brain actually sees. So you can give Tom Brady's brain part credit, but his ability to embrace physical training and the nuances to looking at doing things a different way, because he is not a good athlete, but he has managed to turn himself into one of the greatest athletes ever, playing an athletic sport. So, yes, I give his brain credit, but for Tom, if he wasn't doing the type of training that he was doing, if he wasn't sacrificing his body as far as what he was going to eat, finding out how he was going to be able to produce fuel, all those things set the table for, in clutch situation, this dude is second to none. So that's one thing that keeps driving him, because I'm so good when the game is at its most stressful, when it's at its peak, that being in the playoffs, that being third downs, that being fourth quarters. Tom Brady is brilliant at doing that. So I think that right there, that ability to be able to continue to do that has kept him younger in his body than his actual age is.
And speaking of his body, CC, it's interesting because we all remember a couple weeks ago we saw that beach selfie of Tom and Giselle on the beach. And a lot of people, myself included, were a little surprised to see Tom Brady in that physical shape. I think some of us thought he might have had a six-pack or something going on underneath there. But it's so true that he does do something very special for his body. It doesn't necessarily reflect what most of us think as athleticism or what that tip-top body looks like, but it works for him. No questions asked. You got 5 rings to show for it.
Right. Well, the thing about football is when you go through an NFL locker room, there's a certain sector of people that they better have a six-pack. They better have a six-pack on top of a six-pack.
Right.
They need shoulders. They need biceps. But Tom has mastered the ability of strength and flexibility. And playing quarterback, he has been able to endure the punishes of staying in the pocket. And he's gotten better athletically. And quarterback is one of the few positions that you can do this with. Like all that training, playing wide receiver and running back, it will help you, but it only help you a certain amount because you have to put on muscle mass to be able to survive.
He almost looks pliable, I was going to say.
No,
Yes.
well, that's a great word for it, because I was listening to interview, and I wish I remembered the former player's name, but when we were at the height of talking about Guerrero and the pliability and the Brady training, and he said, listen, I will just tell you period, point blank, it was a defensive end. Hitting Tom Brady feels different than hitting other quarterbacks. And he couldn't just explain why. He just said the way other guys seem more rigid. And when I hit Brady, he seems to just absorb, like I absorb into him. So whatever he's doing pliability-wise has clearly been effective. But one of the themes, we're almost at a 1-year mark of this show. One of the themes when we talk about football is Cris repeatedly reminding us that there is the rare 1% of football players that aren't system players, but everybody else, including a lot of all-time greats, are system guys. And that brings us back to Belichick. And that is where it has been, obviously, the perfect marriage. Because, yes, Belichick was not Bill Belichick until he got Tom Brady, but Tom Brady was Tom Brady in name only when he got to Bill Belichick, and has since then evolved into this guy. And when you mention how calm he is in the height of the storm, part of that is because, I believe, his first year in the league, he gets to play in a Super Bowl. His third and fourth years in the league, he gets to play in a Super Bowl. It wasn't until year 4 that he was a big driving engine of those teams making the Super Bowl. Year 1, he had 1 touchdown the entire playoff run. So when you are, I use the Kobe example. Kobe's first championship, he was still a young player. He wasn't a great player yet, but he was with Shaq. He got the experience, so it wasn't a nerve-wracking situation later in his career when he's in those moments. Brady had that benefit of being in the Belichick system and then exceeded anyone's wildest expectations within it.
Yeah, people who are married understand this. Typically, at the height of your career, you'll be able to attach that success with your home life and being happy. And I can't continue to give Tom Brady credit, Belichick credit, with not understanding being in that light, not like Tom Brady, but being a professional athlete, how Giselle must have done a tremendous job, you know, and her relationship being able to balance being married to Tom Brady, what they're going to do privately and what they're going to do publicly. And also the other marriage, the marriage that he has with the Kraft family and the New England fan base. Tom Brady loves being a Patriot. He loves playing for Kraft. So those two marriages, his home life, because most people will tell you, man, at the height of my career, I look back at it, yeah, man, I had some things in order at home that really, really helped me and led to me being successful. And then also, sometimes it's the name on the front is deemed even more important than the name on the back, and that's who you're representing. That's the Kraft and Patriot Nation, which has been a tremendous, because Kraft, when he was a Patriot fan growing up, they were losers. Yeah. Since he's taken over the team, they've been winners.
It is certainly working for all involved. Coming up next, the Cowboys wide receivers actually underrated. I know we've been giving them a lot of stuff about it. We'll talk about it next on First Things First. We're going to move on to the Dallas Cowboys. Pro Football Focus ranked their wide receiver core 29th in the NFL, but don't tell that to Cole Beasley. Former Cowboys great Michael Irvin said, quote, Cole Beasley told me that the Cowboys wide receivers will shock people. Okay. CC, are the Cowboys wideouts being underrated here?
Underrated? I mean, why should they have a high rating?
He about to be shady.
This is the thing, because I really try to give them credit, and I'm really trying to listen to Cole Beasley, because we're getting a lot.
He's got a big speaking role this year, evidently.
Yeah, I mean, this is 7th year in the league.
7th year.
Yeah, like surprising. People like wouldn't know that. Like he's been around for. He's no young football player. Like, has he ever started a game?
Has he ever started a game
in the NFL?
If they start, a
lot of teams are starting 3 guys.
Yeah,
it's your 6th year in the league. You typically would have started some games by now.
That's fair.
So
that's fair.
The rating for the Cowboys wide receivers are appropriate for who they are. All right, because wide receiving groups are like, and Nick and I have discussed this a lot. It's like a basketball team, all right? If you're going to have a group, because you need a center. Now, we got small ball now, so you can have a small 5. So everyone can't have a GRONK and everything,
right.
But it'd be nice to have a GRONK. Like, you need a table setter, someone you can throw the ball into. They can generate first downs. Okay, they don't have that.
Mr. Reliable.
All right, yeah, so if you don't have a center, now we need a point guard. Like, who is their point guard? So I would say Cole Beasley might be their point.
And when CC says like a basketball team, just think about it size-wise. Like you want you and guys that complement each other. So your shooting guard might be your speed guy.
Size and shape and speed. Exactly. So you like to be able to diversify that. But ultimately, you need either a big person that can be dominant, or you need someone on the wing that can score and get buckets. Now, they don't have that. Allen Hurns is the only receiver in their careers that had 1,000-yard season. So I would say Allen Hurns might be underrated. Cole Beasley is a slot receiver. He's going to be a product of the system, all right? His yard per catch is going to be anywhere from 7.5 yards a catch to 11 yards a catch. His touchdowns, he's not going to score many touchdowns. When you watch video of Cole Beasley, you will see him short area quickness. You'll see him getting open, but immediately you will see him getting tackled, going to the ground. So who's going to get them yards after the catch? You know, to me, they have to spread it around. Terrence Williams, he's got to become the ultimate deep threat for the Cowboys, because they have to run a lot of play action. But for me, Allen Hurns is the guy. If he doesn't have 1,100 yards this year, it's going to be hard for the Cowboys in their wide receiving core with not a proven tight end on the roster. It's going to be hard. So, no, they're rated exactly where they should be.
And listen, the word underrated, overrated, sometimes people misunderstand what they mean. Like, something can be great, yet still overrated. I'll take an example from the musical world, might make some people angry. The Beatles, they were great. They might be overrated, given the fact that everyone says they're the greatest musical group ever. Something can be mediocre, yet be underrated. I'll go to the sports world. I think Andy Dalton fits that bill. Like Andy Dalton gets treated as if he's a terrible quarterback. He's an okay quarterback, so I think he's a little underrated. But sometimes things are properly rated. And that's the Dallas Cowboys wide receivers. They are looked at as a group that's bottom 5 in the league, and they are bottom 5 in the league. If you are in a position where your best hope and arguably your only hope for a 1,000-yard receiver is Allen Hurns, well, then you're properly rated. You mentioned Terrence Williams. Now, I think he could be key to them in this regard. We saw early in his career, he was the big play guy. He was 17 yards a catch, over 16 yards a catch each of his first 3 years. And then something happened the last few years. He went to 13, down to 10. Now, I know that's when the quarterback change happened, but I don't know that we can lay that totally at Dak's feet. I don't know if they're using him properly, but he does have the ability for explosive plays. And we've talked a ton about it is so hard in this league if you're saying, I'm going to have a 12-play, 80-yard drive. I'm going to have an 11-play, 80-yard drive.
Yes.
That you need to be able to have a 6-play, 80-yard drive. And so how do you do that? With some explosive plays. We know Beasley's not going to create those. Like best case scenario for Beasley is in a 3rd and 5, can he get you 7 yards? Like, can he be a reliable slot receiver in this league, which is what he's been at his best. Dak's first year is when he was probably statistically his best. But the rest of the guys, Tavon Austin, he's just a project who was a high draft pick, who has never yet found himself a real place in this league. Deontay Thompson, there's a reason he's been on now, I believe it is 4th different team.
Yes, I've been watching
NFL.
Deontay since high school.
Okay.
Right? He played football in South Florida and also played for Urban Myers in that prolific offense that they had with Tebow, Percy Harvin, Hernandez, Murphy, Lewis Murphy, all those pros on that, all right? So he's been a role player. Right.
Everywhere he's gone. Yes. Everywhere he's gone, he's been a 4th or 5th wide receiver. And so sometimes things are just what they appear to be.
Right.
And I can't make an argument here that the Cowboys wide receivers are getting an unfair shake. I just can't. Like, I'd love to, but there's not one to be made. Now, they can prove us wrong, but I can't make that argument.
Cece, let me ask you this real quick. Would you rank them higher or have a better opinion of this wideout group if Dez was still with them?
Absolutely. Because Dez has proven himself to a certain point. Now, if Dez was still with the Cowboys and he was saying the same things that he has said this offseason, he's working harder than he's ever worked. He's working on some fundamentals. He's learning how to do certain things. I mean, these are the things I've been saying about Dez the last 3 years. Like, I wish it could have worked out, but a lot of times you need that shock to your system, and that was Dallas not offering him a contract, not inviting him to come back even at a reduced salary. So, yes, I would feel more comfortable because I think between Terrence Williams and Tavon Austin, they could create the deep threat with Dez being the possession guy and a proven red zone.
And then you have more of that basketball team makeup. You know what I mean? You know who your power forward is. We'll see if Tavon can be the point. Then it makes more sense. You don't have the clear one. And that means if your 2's got to be your 1, then your 3's got to be your 2. Everyone's playing a little up for their skill set.
The one thing they have more of this year than they've had in the last couple years is they have more speed.
Yes.
Now, if the coaching staff can be able to utilize that speed, now people not looking at their speed, that might be underrated. Cole Beasley's rap career, that might be underrated, but them as a group, it's proper.
They are what they are. All right. Coming up, how did Randy Moss make the great Bill Belichick a better coach? We'll hear from Belichick's own mouth next on First Things First. Time now for some stories to start your morning. This is brought to you by the unexpected energy of ExxonMobil. Jacksonville Jaguars defensive tackle Malik Jackson says Jacksonville players are in awe of all-pro corner Jalen Ramsey. In awe. Chris Carter, how much of a difference maker is Ramsey?
Now, Malik Jackson, too, I followed his career. He's a physical player. He's not one to give out compliments like that. And the reason why he's in awe of him is because he's healthy. We don't see cornerbacks with the size, 6'3" to 6'4", and how much he weighs, can play bump and run, can guard the best receiver on the field, and is also excellent off the field. Great hands catching the football. So he's a special football player.
And keep in mind who Malik Jackson has played with. Where was he before Jacksonville?
Denver.
He was in Denver with Aqib Talib, Chris Harris, with Von Miller, like some great defensive players on a great defense there and in Jacksonville. I buy it. This is why Jalen Ramsey profiled out of Florida State as one of the best corners since the greatest corner out of Florida State, Deion Sanders.
The run-pass option was a big part of the Eagles and the Jags' success last season. Some players aren't expecting it to stick. Ravens safety Eric Weddle says the RPO is a fad, and it'll be out of the league in 5 years. CC, do you agree with that prediction?
No. Eric Weddle, he's going to be out the league, so he's not going to be studying it. I mean, like, I know he's a good football player and everything.
5 years. I mean,
he's going to be out there.
He's hung on a long time.
I mean, no. He's got the really long, nice beard and everything. But, no, I thought the Wildcat. Yeah, like, this is just a different version of, like, the Wildcat. How are you going to attack defenses? So it might not be a version of this, but there will be a wrinkle. But this one has more potential than the Wildcat because now the run-pass option, they're throwing the ball most of the time.
Well, but also last year it became very in vogue amongst certain announcing crews to call very traditional football plays almost anything that involved a play action. Oh, that's an RPO. Oh, that's an RPO. And when it wasn't.
Yeah, but the RPO police is here. Chris Carter, I watched games with Nick. I was like, Nick, they fabricating that.
Right. And so I think it will. Listen, when you have quarterbacks, especially a breed of athletic quarterbacks like Carson Wentz that can execute it at a high level, I think it is here to stay to a degree, maybe not to the degree it was this past season.
Also, Nick, the ability to be able to freeze linebackers, and that's what that play fake does, which creates more space for passing lanes. I believe that is hard to be able to take out of the game when you can freeze a defense like that.
All right, the NBA Christmas schedule has been set. Some of the highlights include the Sixers taking on the Celtics, OKC takes on Houston, and the Lakers will head up to the Bay Area to take on the defending champion Warriors. Now, Nick, which game are you most excited about?
Well, there is the Carmelo Anthony revenge game in there, which is intriguing. LeBron getting take on the Warriors is intriguing, but I believe it's Sixers Celtics. I think these are the two best teams in the East. I know the Sixers just once again got more bad injury news with the rookie Zaire Smith probably being out for the season with a Jones fracture. But the whole world seems to think the Celtics are the best team in the East. I think the Sixers are the best team in the East. And they're clearly, along with Toronto, the two best teams in the East. So that's the matchup I'm most looking forward to.
Great matchup on Christmas, especially these two stellar franchises. Every game they play this year will mean something.
Yes.
But, man, we got to watch Bron, man, on Christmas, man. You got to watch. Man, as Santa Claus, as he's delivering presents, man, I want to watch LeBron James one more time going against these Warriors with these young Lakers.
And finally, we're going to Carmelo Anthony, who's agreed to a deal with the Houston Rockets. Now, Melo was waived by the Atlanta Hawks last week. So, Nick, with Melo included, how close are the Rockets to the Warriors?
I think that the Rockets got worse this offseason and the Warriors got better, and last year the Warriors won the series. So I think the Rockets are the closest of any team in basketball, but they are not incredibly close. I don't think anyone's incredibly close. When the Warriors add Boogie Cousins to their weakest position, the Rockets, I don't think they're worse, by the way, because they added Melo. I think they're worse because they lost Ariza. Yeah. Chris Paul is a year older, and it is going to be very difficult for them to get what was critically important last year, the #1 seed. So I think they're closer than anybody else, but I think that gap, the gap between 1 and 2 in the NBA is bigger than the gap between 2, which is Houston, and 7, which might be the Raptors.
Yeah, there hasn't been a lot of good news coming out of Houston since Chris Paul injured his hamstring. Couldn't play in Game 6, couldn't play in Game 7. This offseason, we have seen the Warriors. Yes, they are better. But Houston, when you sign Melo to the deal in the price you get him at, you got better as a team. Let's not fool ourselves.
Yes.
I mean, when you're paying Melo no money, all right, and the amount of minutes he's going to be able to log, like the team got better, but there's still a gap between Houston and Golden State.
And when you say they got better, you mean they're better today than they were on Monday.
Yes.
Not that they're better today than they were last season.
Yeah, absolutely. But I don't, I'm not going to continue just to talk negatively about Carmelo. The Rockets got better. Let's just see how the season and see what the addition actually is.
And one other note that I just kind of nerdy basketball note. One thing that Melo struggled with a bit last year, he struggled with a lot last year, but one of the things in particular with OKC is they like to play a really fast pace. And aside from his ability to make trailing threes, he's not a guy that's ever played at a fast pace. The Rockets were middle of the league last year in pace of play. That should suit his style a little bit more. And because of the loss of Ariza, they do have an opening at the starting forward spot. And Melo, for good or for bad, is not mentally in a place right now where he wants to be coming off the bench, so they won't need to ask him or try to force him to come off the bench because they have an opening at that spot.
All right, fellas, we're going to move on to the NFL Hall of Fame ceremony. Randy Moss was inducted into Canton over the weekend, and despite spending less than 4 seasons in New England, Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick made the trip to Ohio to celebrate with Randy. Belichick opened up about his relationship with Randy Moss.
Well, Randy was, Randy it was a very special relationship. I think it's just logistically, you just can't have the kind of relationship with everybody. There's just so many players and so many hours in the day. That was one that, through a variety of circumstances, and probably more the way that Randy came onto the team, and again, other circumstances that were involved there, it just kind of evolved that way. I don't think any of us necessarily planned it. It just worked out. But I learned a lot from Randy. Randy had a big impact on me as a coach. He taught me the game from a perspective that I had never really seen before or understood before. And so I'll always be grateful to him for that, for doing that.
A little softer side of Belichick. Chris Carter, what's your reaction to that comment?
I'm not surprised. Not surprised that Bill learned from him because I've told Nick in conversating with him about Randy and about football, Randy's one of the smartest football players that I've ever played with. And his ability to understand concepts defensively, what they're trying to do. And we've never had anyone in the history of football Randy's size and had Randy's speed and quickness. Like, we've had great speed burners. James Lofton. He's a guy who's 6'3", almost 6'4", run 4.3, world-class speedster in the Hall of Fame. But he didn't have the quickness in a short area that Randy had. He didn't have the deep ball skills that Randy had, because very few times you can see a guy who's a very, very fast guy who can play off the ground. They're very, very fast, but their ground, man, their game is only on the ground. They can't get off the ground, and you don't see speed guys making spectacular, not only one-handed catches, but just have great set of hands. So Randy and that skill set. Randy can get to parts on the football field that Belichick had never seen a player ever get to. Randy can get through defenses and through coverages that we didn't see. Jerry Rice didn't even have the same type of coverages that we saw that the people were putting on Randy Moss. So I think the intellectual property of understanding football, and Belichick alludes to it. He didn't really go into it, why it might have been different. We have to understand that Randy, when he came from the Raiders, he had 2 awful seasons with the Raiders. He had a big-time contract. So New England traded for Randy. Randy took some salary reduction, so they had to talk that out. And Belichick had to explain to Randy what type of coach and how the program was going to be. When they traded for Brandon Cook, they didn't have to tell him nothing. He was going to show up to work. You didn't have to worry about him. And Cook knew the pressure was going to be on him to do it. Randy, they wanted to make sure, so there was a lot of conversations, and Randy appreciated that, and you immediately saw Randy change back to having that record-breaking season that they had there in New England.
And see, you just mentioned he got to places on the football field that Belichick had never seen a guy get to. And you, before the show, mentioned one specific play in particular, and I think we can show it, which is the touch. Is this the first touchdown he scored as a Patriot?
Yes.
The one against the New York Jets?
Yeah, they played the Jets the first game of the season, and Randy had dominated the first first half, but early in the third quarter, they run a small little play action fake, which gets a little pull on the backside corner. And Tom Brady, I know, had never thrown a touchdown like this, where Randy Moss gets to a part of the field that no one's going to throw to. He runs through the coverage, which is a zone coverage, just off of a little play fake. He goes from right inside the numbers all the way across outside the other numbers, and that's something Belichick had never seen before.
And so people, at the very beginning of this play, people need to understand, Randy is at the top of the screen. Randy's on the far side of the field and ends up on the near side of the field. And at the end of that play, Belichick said you can't have a special relationship with everyone, basically. He did something that is, by Belichick standards, like for Dick Vermeil, who was a very emotional, I love you guy type of coach, wouldn't have been that rare. But what Belichick did at the end of the play is what was so interesting to you.
He immediately embraced Randy, because almost the whole offense met Randy down by the goal line. It was his first touchdown. They realized they had a special player. It wasn't that he had made just a special play there. It was an acknowledgement of his skill, and Randy needed that positive reinforcement. And Belichick looked him in the eye and shook his hand and was like, that's why I went to Oakland to get you. So that bond, it started when the initial phone call with Randy taking the salary reduction that he took, Belichick explaining the program to him, and instant results in week number 1 there against the Jets.
And the Patriots, that 2007 season was a sea change for Tom Brady's career and for the way the Patriots dominate the NFL. They obviously had won 3 Super Bowls before that season, but those were defensive-minded teams. This decade, in 2010, so like 2007 season happens, 08 Brady misses with an injury, 2009 Brady's first year back off the injury. So 2010 to now, they've had a top 4 offense scoring-wise every single year.
Yes.
In the 2000s, they did that, 2000 to 2009, they did that one time other than Randy's, the 2007 season. And that's what we've seen. They are now a team that beat you offensively. They are now a team that beat you through the air, which is totally different than the pre-Randy Moss era.
And you can't do that unless Belichick basically forgets how he's going to win games. Now, he's going to be best at situational football, but he understands that this new NFL is dominated by quarterbacks, is dominated by offenses. I don't need a great defense, and I don't need great wide receiver personnel. He learned that after Randy left there.
So that leads me to my last question on this, which is you were on a plane with Robert Kraft a year and a half ago, and you Robert Kraft FaceTime with Tom Brady, and you talked to him. Brady, tongue-in-cheek, said, or you said you had just signed with him, and he said, "Good, man. I've been wanting a big receiver."
Yes.
We saw what the Patriots did in 07 with a big, great receiver. Why do you think they haven't prioritized a top flight? There's not another Randy Moss to go get. But there were rumors at one point they might trade for Fitzgerald, and they didn't. Why do you think they haven't prioritized that type of playmaker more?
I think that they have found that they can develop players within the salary cap restriction, because they don't want to pay a premium for that position. That's the reason why Randy left there. They would not give him the new big contract. With Tom Brady, why he's taking salary less than he should take. Like they have a model of what they're going to do. Now, they develop wide receivers really well. You have to give them credit for that. But small guys, short area quickness, a couple guys outside who do have some speed, but they're not going to attack you deep down the field they did with Randy. Now they attack you deep in the seams. That's the difference in some of the things that they've done. But Belichick's adapting to now being an offensive coach. That right there leads to, man, why he's the greatest football coach that's ever coached in the NFL.
And I guess that makes sense as to why Randy taught him so much out of his own mouth. Softer sided, Bill. I like it. Coming up, you won't believe what Jarvis Landry had to say last night on Hard Knocks. Boy, did he have a word. You'll hear from him next on First Things First. We're back on First Things First. The LA Lakers bought in Rajon Rondo this offseason to help mentor fellow point guard Lonzo Ball. Now, some have speculated that Rondo will have an issue not being the starting point guard. Well, TMZ caught up with him and asked him if he'd be okay coming off the bench.
Whatever they ask me, my main objective is to win. I'm ready to help develop Lonzo as much as possible. If I'm not starting, if he's starting, he's going to be ready to go. I'm ready for anybody that comes this way. We'll be ready to roll.
Nick, how do you see it working out? What kind of impact do you think Rondo will have on Lonzo?
I think his biggest impact is going to be interpersonal relationships on the team and in practice. I think Rondo is going to go at Lonzo's throat in practice, and I say that in a good way. Rondo is a notorious competitor, whether it is playing Connect Four, which he considers himself the greatest Connect Four player in the world, or whether it's on the basketball court. Now, there are times where he has checked out on teams, but if he is bought in and engaged, we have seen his relentless competitive nature. I think that will be great for Lonzo Ball on the practice court, and I think that's a huge reason they brought in Rajon Rondo. The other place that I think, and people might be surprised to hear me say this, that I think Rondo can be very helpful with Lonzo is the relationship and dealing from Lonzo's side of things with LeBron. We know LeBron can be notoriously passive-aggressive. We also know LeBron holds players to an incredibly high standard, and LeBron does not have a long history in the last decade of playing with young guys. The best example I can think of since he's been a champion or becoming a champion is with Mario Chalmers in the Heat. And Chalmers got it so bad when they went to the White House, President Obama joked about it. Like it was a running joke, how everything was Mario's fault. That can be tough on Lonzo Ball. And we know Lonzo's dad is going to be in his ear saying one thing. Rondo being something of a calming force, saying, listen, man, don't get down on yourself. Here's what you need to do. Those are the ways that I think Rondo can be most helpful to Lonzo Ball, not in the 20 minutes a game or whatever that Lonzo gets to rest while Rondo's out on the court.
No, I think it's important that you have veteran players. The LeBron relationship, like it's real. It's real to play with any superstar. Not only LeBron. Like when you are even Kevin Durant, there would be insight in playing with him. Playing with Steph Curry, there would be insight in playing with them. But the two areas that I think he can help him the most is Rondo struggled shooting the basketball. All right? That's a real thing. All right? What type of regimen? What did he do different? How to go about it? That's going to be one thing. And another thing that Rondo is real to him is how to run a basketball team. He knows how to run a basketball team. Lonzo does not know how to run a basketball team. And I'm talking about from which plays to call, feel during the game. So I believe that the minutes that Lonzo's on the court and Rondo is watching, he will be orchestrating, directing him, telling him, based on the Lakers personnel, what are the best sets for them and at what time of the game. So I believe the time on the court and off the court is very, very important. Shooting the basketball, what regiment do I get into? How do I learn how to do that? What shots should I be taking as a point guard? So I think that push-pull there between the veteran Rondo and Lonzo and his lack of experience, I think it's a good fit.
A quick question for you, Nick. You mentioned how fierce a competitor Rondo is, and anybody that's watched him has seen that. Absolutely, that's factual. Why is it, though, that you think I think a fairly young age, I mean, he's not an old dude, he's okay coming off the bench and stepping into that more mentor role? And I agree with all y'all, I think he is, but why do you think that works with his competitiveness?
I think that Rondo has played on good teams, and he's played for championships early in his career, then he went to basketball version of the Siberia in Sacramento, and then he was kind of in between, 2 years ago in Chicago, last year in New Orleans, and being able to play with LeBron, being able to play on a one-year deal where maybe he can prove himself and get a bigger deal that I believe he thought he was going to get a bigger offer this offseason after how good he was in the postseason for New Orleans. I think all of that's attractive to him. And while he is saying, listen, I'm okay, he's going to be competing for the starting job. He, I'm sure, wants to be the starting point guard, but he knows who Lonzo is and he knows the team he's on. But we can go back to his time in Chicago. He has, for a guy who's this will be his 13th year, he has a good history of embracing the younger guys. When Dwayne Wade and Jimmy Butler were at odds with the younger players in Chicago, Rondo was the veteran who put his arm around those younger guys. Now, I don't think they'll have that type of veteran young player dichotomy in L.A., but he isn't an old veteran that's like, I don't need to talk to these young guys. He has a history of doing a good job with that.
Yeah, Rondo's got a lot of basketball left in him. And he's got to deal with LeBron, too. So you just can't say, I'm going to play with the Lakers 1 year, I'm just going to act a fool when you know LeBron. And LeBron's LeBron's not upset that they didn't trade all these young players for Kawhi with the potential of getting Kawhi. So this is what LeBron has signed up for, and Rondo knows that. So we talk about all these other young players, they got to deal with LeBron. The veteran players got to deal with LeBron too, and he's hard on them, as we saw with J.R. Smith.
And I want to talk about one other person I think Rondo can help quite a bit. And we had talked about Randy Moss teaching Bill Belichick things. And Belichick, obviously, well, even by the time Randy got there, one of the greatest coaches ever. Rondo can help Luke Walton. Rondo knows as much, if not more, about basketball than Luke Walton. And so that could be a tough situation for the head coach, but I think it could be a beneficial one for the head coach as well. As far as Rondo being able, one of the highest IQ basketball players we have in the league, being able to talk through with Luke Walton what he's seeing on the court, what he's seeing from the young guys, what he's seeing in Lonzo that he went through himself, and all of those things, I think Luke Walton can benefit if they get off on the right foot to Rondo being there as much as Lonzo Ball can. And so I think it's a good fit for those guys all around in that regard.
Absolutely, that's good. I mean, I tend to agree. I mean, I think there's so much drama made around Lonzo's father. Maybe, he's growing up, and he has an opportunity to be mentored by some other vets, and he has other voices in his ear other than just his dad.
Yeah, any dad would want that.
Absolutely, great. Well, we got much more coming up. First things first, stay with us. The Giants will kick off preseason action against the Browns tomorrow. Number 2 overall pick, Saquon Barkley. Well, he's preparing for his first NFL season. Now, in order to make the adjustment, Barkley says he's been watching film of Adrian Peterson to help him get used to pro-style offense. CC, how will Saquon make the adjustment to pro-style offense?
And this is what a lot of players do, not only transition from college to pros. You have what they call training tape, which is typically if a coach is trying to install something, and that being offense or that being a technique. For years in the NFL, we've used video, and athletes are visual learners. So the more pictures you can put in front of them, and then a lot of times as a coach can't demonstrate what typically sometimes they want you to do, but they can get some ridiculous athlete like Adrian Peterson to be able to show you things that are better teaching tools sometimes than words. So they put them in clips, and they get players like Barkley to be able to look at these clips, and you're able to learn and see from what the running back, because the coach might not be able to relate to Barkley what he can do. But Adrian Peterson and what he sees in the hole, what he sees pre-snap, what he sees during the play, Barkley would be able to relate to. So a lot of times coaches utilize that training tape of players like Peterson to be able to get the point across.
And it's game film, but it's not game film because it's play of just these runs.
Yes.
And so so you're utilizing the time, most efficiently. And I would caution anybody of making Adrian Peterson comparisons to anybody, even a guy drafted number 2 overall. Mm-hmm. This guy was a stud coming out of high school, dominated the Army game, the
Yes.
All-American game.
Yes.
Dominated that when he declared for Oklahoma. The only thing that stopped him from being the single most dominant player in college football every year at Oklahoma was injury, and he came into the league and instantly dominated the NFL. To me, I think Saquon will adjust fine to the pro style. My question is, how will he adjust to the pro punishment? Because that was never a question with Adrian Peterson. We knew that as long as he stayed healthy, he had weird nagging injuries at OU, that he was going to be bigger and stronger than even some of the best defensive players. And he showed that. We also knew you could get Adrian Peterson the ball 25 times,
yes,
up the middle, off tackle, didn't matter, and he was going to be able to do it. That's the only question I have with Barkley. Is he a 15-carry, 5-catch-a-game guy, or can he be a 20, 22-carry-a-game guy? And that's pro style or college style.
Yes, and he's going to have to answer some of the same questions that Adrian Peterson, because coming up to Adrian Peterson coming out of Oklahoma, we hadn't seen a lot of people from Oklahoma, great running backs. Billy Sims, he had a great career, but besides that, who are the running backs that have gone from Oklahoma in transition? And people say, well, why do people look at that? Yeah, because of the history of the game, you have these dominant universities. In Penn State, Barkley is going to have to overcome what pro scouts and pro coaches know. Penn State skilled players, running backs, have not done well in the NFL. If you look at Penn State's great program, you tell me how many skilled guys they have, that being running backs, quarterbacks, defensive backs, wide receivers that are playing in the National Football. Not a lot of them. Now, he was tremendous at Penn State, but most of his big plays came through the passing game and came through special teams more so than they came like Adrian Peterson running the ball through the gut of a defense. So there's still some questions. Adrian had some questions. He answered them immediately.
Well, I want to follow up on that because I've understood when people hold, all right, this coach and this system for quarterbacks, right? He can help you put up great numbers. June Jones, he helped you put up great numbers in college.
Yes. Don't
know if he's going to be a great pro. But why would the history of how Penn State running backs in the 90s did in the pros, because you're telling me it does, like guys have questions about it. Obviously didn't hurt his draft stock, but why do you think that is true? Why do you think guys will look at what people did under different regimes and different generations and say, same school, I wonder how successful they'll be?
Well, when you have 20 years, 30 years of history, I mean, absent of Franco Harris, who's been the best in the pro football? Kajana Carter, good friend of mine. Now, he got hurt at Penn State. He drafted there by the Bengals. Didn't have the career. But when you look at it...
Larry Johnson's the one guy recently that had a good couple... I mean, he had a great couple years, but
they just have not produced. So it's a matter of... I mean, we're a results-oriented business. Sure. You don't get orange trees from apple seeds. Right. All right? So... Ohio State, their next quarterback will be the best quarterback potentially in pro football that they've ever had. They haven't had any. So my school has its own critiques. Other schools have their own critiques, and that is the critique about Penn State. They produce offensive linemen, and they produce linebackers. So until they start producing some of these skilled guys, that's something that I should look at. I'm not saying he's not going to be a good player. But he's going to have to be able to break through what history shows me not to be true.
CC, in addition to the programs, when you are looking to evaluate a player's ability to make that transition from collegiate football to pro football, what else are you evaluating?
Well, can he adapt to being in New York City? Now, he seems to be a pretty humble kid. He likes working out, so he's in love with the game. There's a lot of grittiness about the NFL that's not videotaped. Are you in love with that part, the thing that makes Tom Brady great? So there's other little intangibles about loving the game and being in the limelight that they help, if you like those things, it's easier to have a great career.
I'm going to talk about one tangible that I want to pick your brain on real quick before we move on. When we watched him play against Ohio State in Columbus, before the game even started, if you had never watched Penn State play, watching them warm up, you knew who their best player was. It was the guy who was in the best shape. It was the guy who looked like the best player. The guy, he was just clearly, visually, from 30 yards away, standing in the back of the end zone. He's the best athlete out there. That will not be the case in the NFL. He's still as good of an athlete as he was before, maybe even better. But he is now going to be going up against a caliber of athlete he never has. I get that. That's everybody that goes college to pro. But a guy who was, how much more difficult is the transition for a guy? I don't want to say he relied overly on his athleticism. He's a running back. But he was always the best athlete on the field. And now that will not be the case.
I disagree with you because he's a better athlete than Odell Beckham. Size, power, strength. Now, Odell's a ridiculous athlete. Now, when him and the Giants, when they're in the huddle, Barkley is the best athlete. Now, does that athleticism transfer over to being a great football player? Odell's a great athlete who is a great football player. Does it transfer over? Because no, if you look at his powerlifting, he's got powerlifting records. Man, he's a blazer in the 40-yard dash, short area quickness, vertical leap, broad jump, all these things. No, I mean, unless he's on the field with Jalen Ramsey or someone, no. This kid, when he steps on the NFL field, a lot like when he was at Penn State and in high school, he will be the best athlete on the field. Will it transfer over? Ezekiel Elliott in Dallas, it transfers over. Right. Ezekiel is a freak athlete. So we'll see with Barkley, and I believe that it will transfer over.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think.
subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.